There are a few dignitaries that we have in the audience, and there's too many to name them all. But I like to just mention at least two in sincere humbleness, and that is one, Ms. Baina Bello of the Haitian Women for Haitian Refugees, who's in the audience, and also Mr. Alexis Burke, Vice President of the New York Times. I thank you both. And now this meeting will be turned over to His Holiness as the question and answer session will now proceed. For those of you who like to ask His Holiness a question, there's a mic that's situated in the center of the room. There has been names taken, so if you kindly step forward with your questions. Alhamdulillah.
Have you already listed the names of those who wanted to ask questions?
Some have said, but they have also had the right to rescind that if they chose.
Of course, they have, but the way you said it, I thought it was organized and everybody knew when his turn would come. Is that right?
No, they have been
All right.
given the option.
So let's invite all the honorable guests to choose their right to ask questions if they so like. I am at your disposal. I know I have a long experience of such meetings all over the world. I know it's like rain. The first drop is most difficult to come by. But when it begins to rain, then nobody can stop it. So such is always the case of questions and answers, which I have experienced myself. So I hope somebody would become the first drop of rain, but not the last one. Oh yes, of course. Most wonderful. Please.
Thanks.
Can I put it across?
Yeah, thanks.
I said, put it without disrespect to you.
Your Eminence, Assalamu alaikum again. Be good enough and share with us your vision of the role of Islam and of the Ahmadiyya movement in Islam during the next 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. Share with us your vision and enlighten us. Thank you.
My very dear friend, more than a friend, a very dear brother to me, who understands me and I understand him better than many people perhaps can imagine. He'll ask me a question which is so comprehensive and universal in nature that it will take me the best part of the remaining hours, and I say hours, not hour, to deal with this one single question. So that is my embarrassment and difficulty, but I will try to be as brief as possibly I can be. One thing I must remind you, if you don't know it already, that a few years ago in London, I delivered a lecture on the issue of Islam's response to contemporary issues. And it was a well-attended lecture. It has been now published in the form of a book. So the major questions regarding what Ahmadiyyat can do on behalf of Islam in the world of today have been discussed in that lecture, which is available in the book form. But as I said, I would briefly attempt to answer the question. I believe that Ahmadiyyat is going to play a greater role and a growingly greater role in the world affairs regarding human peace and establishment of absolute justice in the world. I believe what is lacking, what is wanting in the world of today is awareness, as in awareness that we talk big and act low. We are living a lie. we claim everywhere in the world, it's not a question of the first world or second or third world. Everywhere alike we claim that we are for peace. But on what platform, on what grounds are we attempting to build peace? In the air, because the peace they talk about cannot be built without the foundation and a solid foundation of absolute justice. So talk of peace without justice is totally meaningless. It's like building castles in the air. And more so it is important because all the world's nations are aware of the impending dangers to the peace, and yet they don't realize that whenever they talk of justice, they do not speak of absolute justice. They speak of relative justice. And this includes America. I hope not to offend the sensibilities of Americans here, but I'm right. I can't be but right because I want to remain truthful. It is a situation which is a universal situation applying to every country. When the political leaders here, for instance, claim that they are working for justice, the term justice is narrowly defined in covering the justice in relation to Americans. If it is unjust for the other nations, but according to the American vantage point, it is just, then every American leader would opt for that narrow-minded justice test, which is acceptable to the Americans in their own countries. And they have no other option, that is the point, because they will be removed from leadership if they behave in a universal manner. So this is just an example because we are sitting here on American soil, which you understand better being Americans mostly, but I'm talking of the whole world following exactly the same pattern. Ahmadiyya community is committed to spread the awareness of this inconsistency in the world's ambitions and world's actions. Moreover, this inconsistency is found everywhere in relation to moral values. Everywhere we want to be a peaceful society, we want to do away with robbing and mugging and all sorts of atrocities committed by man against man, like before us. I don't remember, well, it was a senator or a congressman, but an honorable guest who mentioned the figure perhaps of 70-some thousand people being carelessly murdered here in America every year by other youth. Now, we want peace to declare it, but on what foundation? Nobody cares to analyze the issue of peace in relation to morality. And without emphasizing the role of morality, you cannot achieve peace through the law-abiding forces. It's impossible. Moreover, your media is attracting people to a life of pleasure and plenty, which is beyond the access of most people of the world, most people of every country where the media is inviting you to a life after the fashion of Hollywood, etc. Every Tom, Dick and Harry can have access through television to that beautiful picture, bloated out of reality, of life on earth, having all the pleasures at your doorsteps. And where are the means available to the people? If the fancies are excited, if the desires are worked up, and your inability to achieve creates a sense of helplessness in you, and then you're not armed with morality, what would you do but to become a mugger, a robber, a stealer, anything which would achieve you this the purpose or the semblance of the purpose of having pleasure at others' cost? So prayer is good, but you must also bring the question as to at what cost and at whose cost. The prayer is only genuine and permissible when it is within your own self-territory, not at the cost of others' territory. But this is what is being done, and this is what is being tolerated, and that is against which we are launching a jihad, a holy war. And that is our understanding of holy war. We are at the same time launching a holy war against the so-called holy war advocated by the rest of the Muslim mainstreams. I don't call that a holy war, to take you the weapon and swords in your hand and to attempt to change the religions of other people. The swords can sever heads, but cannot convey the slightest idea into the head of anybody. The swords are beyond to a different realm. They belong to different dimensions. Human mind is to be reached through conviction, through persuasion, through love. And this is again our holy war against the misconceived concept of holy war prevailing among the Muslims of today. And that is why we are at the receiving end of that holy war. But we do not care. We do not afraid. Like the brave gentleman, the father of the Pakistan. He did not care a fig, should I say, as to what message people will receive from Pakistan when this ceremony or this convention is televised throughout the world, and even the Pakistanis will be watching it. He did not care because he's a man of principle. So are we. This is what we have in common. That is why we are being gravitated to each other more and more. So this is what we are doing in the world to not create the awareness, but to bring forth to the surface the awareness, which I believe is found in every human being today. I have traveled America far and wide, not only once, many a time. I came first in 1978 in my personal capacity. I met people at the grassroots level everywhere. The image of America which was created outside was not very attractive, because that was the image of American politics, American mafia, American pursuit of vain pleasures and so on. But when I came here, fortunately, and met the people at the grassroots level, I was indeed enamored by Americans. They're wonderful human beings, everywhere, and very sensible. They want to do good things, but they're helpless, powerless in the hands of the powerful media, which is taking the lead and creating the paths for them, which they willy-nilly tread, despite the fact that they are aware that they are not content with that pursuit. So this is again an awareness we are trying to awaken. But I tell you honestly, as I have just explained, I find man to be a good thing. Deep inside, we know what is good and what is wrong. It is for somebody to raise the voice and to pursue it and to go on speaking out for the sake of good values, so that gradually other people catch up the voice and this becomes a chorus to be heard around and allowed across the borders of the countries. I hope, and this is what I would say in the end, that Americans do take this message, do join this voice. God bless you. Would you read it, please? Yes. Oh, that's right.
There's been a question that has been sent to the podium by Mr. R. Jin. He says, Huzur, can you communicate with God? If yes, can you do it whenever you want, and how?
Now, this is a very interesting question, but it has to be corrected, because everyone on earth can communicate with God. Even the inanimates have a manner of communicating with God, because the Holy Quran says that. The Holy Quran claims that those you believe are without life. Everything has its manner of communicating with God and praising Him, whether you understand it or do not. But so far, man's knowledge has reached to the level of plant life, which was considered to be without any consciousness and awareness. But the modern studies have revealed that even plants can feel and express. Only you have to understand the language. So the further studies in future would ultimately lead you to understand that every form of existence have a way of communication with God. But perhaps the questioner wanted to ask me if I can decide the moment when God should communicate with me. Most certainly not. No man on earth, however big he may consider himself, and if he considers himself to be big enough, is the smallest man on earth, to be able to make God communicate with him. We are beggars, we are humble servants. I pray, and many a time my prayer is heard, in words, in visions, or in dreams. And when these moments come, I consider myself humbler than before. Because I tell you honestly, in all truth, I am ashamed of myself when God bestows a favor on me, because I know better than anybody among you or anybody else that I do not deserve those favors. But such are the ways of Allah. Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the founder of Islam, once said the thing of beauty which can't be surpassed by any other such expression in this regard. He said, if God looked at the weaknesses of His creatures and His creation, He would sever His ties with everything He created. But God chooses to look at the beauties of what He has created. And none of His creation without beauty is without beauty. So it is God in His mercy who chooses to look at something which He has granted me. Otherwise, if He had chosen to look at my drawbacks and follies and failures, I am quite certain He would never communicate with me. But He does, and is in His grace, and the choice is His and not mine. Thank you. Could I have some hot water? It is slightly warm. I would like it to be really hot. Water, but hot.
Another question, Hazur, has come from Ms. Donna Russell.
Yes?
She asks, what role does, in parentheses, do women have in Ahmadiyya movement today? And a follow-up is, how do conventional values of Islam apply within the movement of today's society?
First of all, I understand it is the role in the life today played by Ahmadi women. Is that what you wanted to ask, or was?
What role does or do women have in the Ahmadiyya?
Yes, okay. You see, the role ascribed to women is principally the same as ascribed to men by all religions. They are equal in the sight of Allah. Only where there is a difference of some teaching in detail, it relates to the differences of the constitution of man and woman. And those differences cannot be ignored by even the most vehement advocate of women's labor and equality. For instance, the women's constitution as against men would not permit a man to conceive children and carry them in their bellies for 9 months and feed them out of their breasts. But women can, and the rules become different in that regard. And then women who bear children, they love them definitely more than men because of this long, deeper relationship of 9 months of their lovingly talking to their children, of taking care of them and sharing. everything they have with their child to be. So these are the realities of life. Now such roles, as I'm describing, are more appropriate for taking care of the future generations of human beings. And as such, more time must be given to women in Islam to take care of homes, to see to it that happy, healthy homes with inward gravitation and not just peripheral movement, but occipital movement of the future generations, so that they are drawn from the society back to home as if a ship is drawn to its haven. That is created. And Islamic teaching regarding women is only directed at that end. Otherwise, it is wrong to say that Islam keeps women behind in everything, anything good. I assure you, there are people who have been coming to Ahmadiyya centers because the center of Ahmadiyya lies in the Khilafat, and I here am the center of Ahmadiyya so far. So wherever I go, people come to me and inquire the same questions. So I tell them to go to the Ahmadi women and inquire them from themselves. Once I remember in Norway, something very interesting took place. There was a large gathering of question and answer, and people appeared to be drawing closer to me, agreeing more and more with my views of Islam as I expressed them. So there was one very staunch Christian lady who didn't like that. So like it happens, suddenly she got up and said, "Tell us more about the differences between men and women. Particularly so, tell me why your wife is not present here." I said, "Why don't you go upstairs and ask her?" There are no chains she's bound with. It's her option. I can't enforce anything upon her. This is the freedom in Islam which I'm practicing, not the other way around. And she went upstairs, and it happened that she returned a very crestfallen lady, because it's a long story, I will cut it short. So what I'm telling you is that Islam stands for equality if the given attributes are equal. If the given attributes are different, Islam would be a very unwise religion to plead equality. For instance, in the Olympics, you never see boxing competitions between women and men in the name of equality. Do you ever see that? Do you ever see them racing together or rowing together? Name a competition where physical prowess is required, where men of today forget about the religion. Men of today would treat women equally. So sometimes to treat unequally is a mark of respect. Remember this. And whenever there seems to be a semblance of an unequal treatment in Islam, it is always out of respect, never without it. Thank you.
The next question, Hazur, is from Mr. Javed Malik of the News of Pakistan. His question is, what future do you see for your movement in Pakistan? How would you react to recent events like murder of an Ahmadi professor in Islamabad?
Well, the future of truth is never bleak, anywhere. This is my short answer. And with reference to Christian history, because most of the guests here are Christians, I would point out what would be the answer of Jesus Christ when he was so mercilessly persecuted by the society around, as to what future did he see in Judea and in the world around. For 300 years, no Christian could face that question with assurance that they would emerge victorious. But they knew it. There was something in it. And their enemies also knew it, that they are bound to emerge victorious. That is the only reason of persecution. Why is Pakistan persecuting Ahmadis of all the sects in Islam, while in fundamentals we are much closer to the mainstream Muslims than so many sects of Islam? because they don't see any sign among them of not only survival but of victory, of emerging victorious in the end. That is the only reason which generates persecution of prophets of God and all the truthful people by their opponents. Otherwise there is no reason. Then you can say the world has gone mad. But in their madness they know things. You must realize, again with reference to the Christian history, that when Jesus came, what was his message? Well, how could he annoy any society in the world? The message was, if somebody slaps you on one cheek, offer the other one. How could you in any way injure the sentiments of any society or cause fear to be created in the hearts of any society of the world by this message? When asked for your cloak, offer the shirt as well, or the vice versa. Yet he was persecuted so inhumanly, so beastly, that seldom you find prophets of God having been persecuted like Jesus was and his followers. Why? Because despite their hostility in disagreement, they knew, they were convinced that this is a potent message. It is bound to emerge victorious. So it did. The same is true of Ahmadis in Pakistan. Do whatever they may, they will prove the point further that we, the enemies of Ahmadiyyat, see in Ahmadiyyat something, a sign which tells us, which warns us, that do something about it, or they are going to emerge victorious. My answer is, do whatever you like. We are going to emerge victorious. Thank you.
So I've been told that the rain is starting to come. There are some who have queued up at the mic in the center of the room, and I do have questions here, but since they are there at the queue, we'll entertain that question now.
You mean the rain within the hall, not outside?
Yes, inside.
yes. But you see, you must also decide as to the propriety of continuing this meeting beyond a certain time. Because although out of courtesy some people may not say enough is enough, but people have their own time schedules, they have to return to their respective places, and New York is a very busy city and very crowded streets it has. You know, I was traveling by myself along with my own personal escorts and things from one place to another, and we made good speed. But this morning it was suggested that to improve the speed you must employ the services of police. And you know what happened? Why I was late here? That is the only reason. We could make good speed 50 and beyond, but with the police custody, in police custody, we couldn't move beyond 30 miles per hour. So some of you may have that police custody, police escort, so I should warn you to keep an eye on the moving hands of the watches, of your watch, and read the expressions as well. When you think it is time for us to start eating, you better declare it. Thank you.
So in that regard, we have one question
Okay.
on the mic. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
My name is Imran, and alhamdulillah I'm a Muslim.
Yes.
And my question to you, sir, is as the head of this movement or organization, do you have a pragmatic agenda to establish a state through which you can further, through which you can manifest the true purpose of Islam? That to me is to lift the bottom of the societies all over the world, or the oppressed people that we call. And if you do have, could you enlighten us about that? One more thing. Instead of pointing fingers among one another, like we say, oh, it's our problems are because of this particular sect in Islam or that particular sect, who is the true enemy to us? As I will quote Iqbal, he said that hikmat-e-maghrib se millat ki ye kaifiyat hui, tukde-tukde jis tarah sone ko kar deta hai ghas. So
I'll answer both your questions. Thank you very much. Yes, please. The first question related to?
The state of, is there a state?
Yes, I've got it. The idea is so remote from me that I forgot within a few seconds of what you were talking about. To establish a state for establishing religious values is farthest from religion. No prophet of God waited for power to establish religious values. God waited for the prophet to have achieved religious values before he was granted a state. Don't put the cart before the horse. No state on earth, ever in the history of man, has been able to inculcate human religious moral values among people with the help of sword or coercion in the hands of the state. There is a verdict of history which finds no exception. But there are people who are powerless, who stand for values, and because of their being powerless, the values they achieve and create become lasting values. Jesus being one of those. Look at Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For 13 years, when he needed the power of state most, because his message was threatened to be wiped out, it had no power, no access. He had to migrate from his own township, leaving everything behind. Then for years to come, about 8 years, he lived without power in Medina, in exile, until he retired just a year or two before his demise. By that time, he had achieved all the moral values he was pleading. And by that time, he had built the community which is worthy of discharging the affairs of state. And it was that impetus which was used and consumed by Islam for many centuries to come. So we have no such plan because I don't believe in suicide. Thank you.
I'm sorry, sir. There's another question that has come to the podium. Thank you.
Now the second question relates to
The second question, sir.
Second question was,
is.
instead of pointing fingers to one another,
Oh yes, I've got it.
who is
You see, who is to blame? Now people have made various tendencies in the world of Islam. Some mullahs or clergy blame the other sects for all the ills of Islam, like we have experienced personally. A few years ago, Maulana Manzoor Chinoti issued a statement which was published by almost all the big newspapers of Pakistan, that when a fish in the Pacific Ocean behaves mischievously, believe that the Qadianis are behind that fish. You see, I don't believe in such things. I believe in realities. Realities, when expressed truly, sink into the hearts of the people. I do not blame the Western powers or Christianity or Judaism for the ills of Islam. I only blame the Muslims of today for their own ills. Because, remember this, as long as a man is healthy, no bacteria are permitted by God to work on him. When he becomes unhealthy, then all the bacteria we are all sharing with each other through a breath and inhalation suddenly become active in one person. Why? He has become diseased. And the bacteria are just a sign of his internal malady and disease. Now, when do the vultures sit on the live animals? Have you ever seen that? Vultures only are invited by the corpses. So the same process is further enhanced and becomes more visible. The process of disease is caused by the inner weaknesses of people themselves. And when they go beyond a certain time, then they become corpses fit only to be eaten by vultures. So it is the Muslims who are to be blamed for this. Islam was much smaller in size, in number, in strength, close to the time of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallam. Why could Islam be ill-treated by the powers all around it? Show me one example. Because they were healthy. They were spiritually, morally healthy people. So the only people to be blamed are the Muslims of today and the clergy, in the sense that they do not point their fingers at the sources of danger. They should tell people to return to God in their moral values, in their care for humanity, in their care for truth. Once they do it, then the Muslims will emerge as a great people, not otherwise.
I'm sorry, sir, but we have other questions.
No, it's not a question actually.
I'm sorry, but we have other remarks as well. So this question is from Mr. Fatih Mohammed. He has 3 questions, but because we have consideration of time, I'll only ask the first one.
Okay.
He says, and the other 2, we will send something back in relative.
Right.
His first question is, what means Khalifatul Masih IV?
The word Khalifa is a terminology of Islam in particular. It has many different connotations in relation to its application. When the word Khalifa is related to God, Khalifatullah means the prophet, a messenger of God. And as such, all messengers are Khalifatullah. When the messengers pass away, those who become vicegerents of the departing prophets, they are called Khalifa to that prophet. So because we believe that the founder of the Ahmadiyya community was that Messiah which was promised to all the people of the world, so we, the successors of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, are referred to as Khalifatul Masih, the vicegerent or deputy of that leader in religion who was entitled Messiah, not literally but in character. So Khalifatul Masih IV is obviously is a mathematical question. I am the 4th in order, so I have to be 4th. Thank you.
Now from the mic.
Assalamu alaikum, Effendim. First, let me thank Allah for allowing me to be in your presence on this blessed day, and apologize for my poor question. The signs spoken of in the Holy Quran and in the Hadiths concerning the day of Qiyamah, the day of judgment, appear more and more every day in our lives. Can you explain its meaning? Are we nearing the latter days? And how can we, as believing folk, Christian, Jew, Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, all faiths, all believers, work to better this world and forestall that day of Qiyamah?
Thank you. Your question is not at all poor. It's a very rich question.
Astaghfirullah.
And very relevant to the issue. All issues relating to man today. Because I'm going to explain to you, then I'll be able to convince everybody this question is a very important question. You know, first of all, the day of judgment and the doomsday are 2 different things. You must not confuse these 2 terms. Doomsday relates to the end of the world or the universe, maybe when all the universe is eaten up by a black hole, billions of years from now maybe. That would be the doomsday. But Qiyamah, or a vital change, comes in every person's life once at least. That is death. And that is why the great Urdu poet Ghalib, writing on the death of his very dear nephew, said, जाते हुए कहते हो क़यामत को मिलेंगे, क्या खूब, क़यामत का है गोया कोई दिन और. That while you are departing from us, you say we will meet on the day of resurrection, as if the day of resurrection happens to come later on. This is the day of resurrection, as far as I am concerned. You are parting with me. So these are the 2 different terms which should be understood. Now the remaining part of your question relates to a very important issue, that is the awareness of questionability, of answerability, of accountability. We are all held accountable for whatever we do on this earth. This is the message which is delivered with the concept of a doomsday, not doomsday, but the day of resurrection and the day of answerability. Every man, every living soul is accountable for what he did on this earth. Now this message is repeatedly delivered by the Holy Quran, and it emphasizes that without belief in the day of resurrection, all your actions are meaningless. And without believing in the day of resurrection, sin or crime can never be wiped out. Consider a state where there is no law, where everybody can decamp with whatever he can have, possess, and run away, and there is no accountability. What would happen to such a state? Now, although the crime is on the rampant even today, despite the laws, but it is because man wants to shut his eyes to the realities and believe that he will escape the law's arm, the long arm of the law. And only this hopefulness helps him being encouraged in crime. But if anybody knew that nobody can run away from the arm of the law, and it is bound to happen to everybody, then the world will become a different world. This can only happen through belief in God and belief in resurrection. Because the only living being which knows what we are doing in the daylight or in the dead of the night is God. So a real belief in the watchfulness of God and His presence and His promise that you will come to me and I will judge you in what you did while you lived on earth and either punish you or reward you for your actions is the only means successful in rooting out crime from our own privacies. Now I'll stop this answer after I explain the word privacy is what I said. What did I mean by that? The crime is always nurtured in our privacies, when we are not watched by others, when we are not seen by others. Even in the company here, I can have my private moments. Everybody here can have private moments of contemplation of crime or goodness. So this privacy of man creates some recesses for him, where he can think of anything and yet will not be held responsible. But if you believe in a living God, in an omnipotent God, in an omniconscious God, then it is impossible for you to have such private moments which will escape the sight of God. And when you know that there is a day of resurrection, that is the only way then crime can be ultimately wiped out. So this is one of those things, very difficult task indeed, which we are attempting to achieve. Thank you.
Shukran.
So the next question comes from Zafar Qureshi from Pakistan calling New York. Mainstream movies in Pakistan say that your community's global television program via satellite is a form of revenge. Do you agree with that?
Well, a form of revenge against what? Against falsehood or against truth? If it is a revenge against falsehood, then I am proud of this revenge. And this is exactly so. So many vicious things were said about Ahmadiyya community in Pakistan and outside Pakistan with the help of government of Pakistan. That they were published, they were given wide publicity, and Ahmadis had no measure of, no means at their disposal to defend their cause and to tell the world what the truth was. Now with the grace of Allah, this MTA, the Muslim Television Ahmadiyya, has been granted to us by God, whereby we can convey to the world the truth of Ahmadiyyat. Not only the truth of Ahmadiyyat, but also we speak with reference to the allegations against Ahmadiyyat. We tell the whole world, this is what the mullah says, this is what we are, and this is what they infer, and this is what we infer. So this is not a revenge in the sense as it has been mentioned. It is the most appropriate mayor and the only wise mayor we could take, and God has given us the opportunity to ultimately take this mayor which the world needed very much. Thank you.
From the mic.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
My question has mostly answered regarding the rights of the woman in Islam.
Right.
But I think the ambiguity creates from the point, not the rights of the woman, actually the laws which are in force, either truly or wrongly. You as being a religious leader, have any desire or intention to write a book, or at least to clear to the modern world, particularly the civilized worlds which we call, so that the ambiguity should be removed from the mind of the woman?
Yes.
Thank you.
You see, first of all, we are attempting to educate the world regarding the realities of Islam in relation to all important questions, particularly this one, through my question and answer sessions like these, which are not left to be forgotten in the halls where they were held, but they are recorded like Mr. Jaswal is recording all this proceeding, and they are played to the whole world, to all the continents through our television network system. And I'm glad that America has also become a part of that, and daily 3 hours programs are held now for American people to view themselves. So this is one measure whereby we try to present Islam in its true perspective and remove the misunderstandings. Secondly, I have delivered lectures which have been published in the book form, like I mentioned, Islam's response to the contemporary issues, and there this issue has particularly demanded my attention, and I have given due attention to this. And now a book is about to be published in which also this subject is taken up again, which is rationality, knowledge, truth and revelation, and the interplay of these things. So there this issue will also come up. So we are doing our best whatever we can, inshallah, and inshallah we will try to deliver the truth of Islam to the whole world. Allah bless you, and Allah give us, grant us success to do that.
We'll have time only for one more question,
Okay.
inshallah, and with Hazur's permission we will conclude this question and answer session and have some refreshments. So one more question from the mic, please.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
According to the Quran, I have read passages saying that when Jesus does return, he will perform 3 acts, and that is to break the cross, to kill the swine, and to kill the jizya or the taxpayer.
Yes.
That's the question.
The answer is that you must have been reading a different Quran from the one which the Muslims so well know, because there is no such thing mentioned in the entire Quran. But I take your question with respect, because I understand human weakness, and I know you must have heard of some traditions of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and you must have misunderstood them to be the word of God in the Quran. What you say is found in traditions and not in the Quran. So, first of all, remember this, that there is no tradition which speaks of ascent of Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, alive bodily to anywhere in heaven. No such hadith, anywhere. The Holy Prophet ﷺ speaks of his descent. The word used is nuzul, basically, which means descent. So it is a most commonly misunderstood word, because the word nuzul is also used in the Quran with reference to other things which defy anyone to translate them as literal descent, bodily descent from heaven. For instance, the Holy Quran tells us, using the same word nuzul, that the quadrupeds, and particularly the cows and the sheep and the camels, etc., unarmed, they descended. God made them to descend. Have you ever seen a cow or a buffalo or a camel dangling in the air, descending from the heaven with your own eyes? Never. Obviously, it has a special message, and I'll come to that. The second word, application of the same word nuzul, is with regards to the iron ore, the metal iron. The only one thing of the inanimates which is mentioned in the Holy Quran, which we dig out from the earth as having descended, is the iron ore. And remember this. And then, out of all the prophets of God, the only prophet which is mentioned in the Quran to have descended using the same word nuzul, Anza alaykum Rasulan. What is the full verse? No, Hadi Rasulan. Zikr Rasula. The word Zikr Rasula is used with the word Anzala or Nazalna. I think it's Anzala. But that is, the message is the same word nuzul is used by the Holy Quran with reference to only one prophet of God, that is Prophet Muhammad. So do you believe that he descended from heaven bodily? Now what is the message in this word? The message is that of all minerals and elements of nature we dig out from earth, the most useful for man is iron. And there is no denying it. The second message is that of all the animals, those which we feed on, those who offer us milk to drink and offer us their fur for us to use as clothes, are the type of animals which are most useful for man, are benefactors. And for them and only for them, the word nuzul is used. And of the prophets, no other prophet is mentioned in the Holy Quran having descended except the Holy Prophet, which means that he stands out in his benefit and graces to the mankind and the useful things he has done for the mankind. He stands out in the sight of Allah. So if you delve deeper into the usage of the Quran, then you will begin to see a world of meaning enriching you and enriching the Muslim world. So this is my answer. The word nuzul in respect of Jesus Christ is also used in the same connotation, that in the end days, the most profitable person who will appear on earth would be under the title of Jesus Christ, because the welfare of entire mankind will be related to his advent. Thank you. Now, was that really the last question?
That was the last
Yes. I'm used to some last questions after which 20 or 30 more last questions follow. But not this time, I promise.
There are some writing questions, but with the concept of time in mind, we'd like to conclude this question and answer session with Hazur's permission, so that our guests can partake of some refreshments.
It's most welcome. Thank you very much.
Alhamdulillah.
Who would serve the refreshments and when?
I believe we have...
They can't partake of the plates and cutlery lying before them, can they?
Inshallah, I believe there's a committee that has already started that.
Achha.
I'd like to have the guests to come downstairs.
Oh yes, of course, come on.
Also, if those who had questions, they wrote